You're listening to the 49 Carats Podcast, a 49ers Goldmine production with Stephanie Sanchez.
What's going on, everyone? Welcome to another edition of the 49 Carats Podcast. I'm your host, Steph. It feels like just this morning I was live doing another video talking about Trey Lance and all that stuff. As of right now, we are just an hour away from the 49ers preseason finale against the Chargers. A little over an hour ago, we heard that the 49ers traded their former third overall pick, Trey Lance, to the Dallas Cowboys for a 2024 fourth round pick. And I'm here with my brother, Fabio, to talk all about it. How you doing, Fabio?
Hey, Steph. Thanks for having me. Never a dull moment in Niner football, especially in the offseason lately.
Yeah, for real. And so this is extra crazy because me and my brother had planned to be on this show today, but we were going to be talking about fantasy football, and we were going to announce the draft order of our fantasy football league. And as soon as the news broke, I texted Fabio right away, and I was like, we have to scrap the fantasy stuff. We're going to talk about this Trey Lance trade. So we'll still do the fantasy draft order at the very end of this episode, just letting you guys know. But right now, let's not waste any time. We're all here to talk about this Trey Lance trade. And just really quickly, I think we got to recap what has been a very crazy week for this team. On Tuesday, Kyle Shanahan said that he would announce the backup the week of the Steelers game before week one. On Wednesday morning, Ian Rappaport then reported that Sam Darnold was named QB2, and the team was exploring options for their now QB3, Trey Lance. That same day, Trey Lance was not seen at practice, which, of course, made a lot of people wonder what the hell was going on. Anyway, and Kyle and John did not speak to the local media that day. Instead, they opted to answer questions on their flagship radio station, KNBR, a very controlled environment to do so, I would say. Kyle was on KNBR on Wednesday. John Lynch aired Thursday morning. Both said the plan was to play Trey Lance in the team's final preseason game on Friday. It is now Friday, and hours away from the start of the game, the news broke that Trey Lance had been traded to the Dallas Cowboys. What a crazy freaking week for this team. Like you said, never a dull moment. And Fabio, I haven't gotten a chance to really talk to you about any of this Trey Lance stuff that's been unfolding rather quickly. So not sure if you had been following it as closely as maybe some of us had, but what are your thoughts on how all of this went down and how quickly it escalated?
I've been kind of following your podcast, to be honest, this whole week. Some other content creators out there that have been putting out, updates and news, and obviously NFL Network, ESPN. Man, it just seems like it just avalanched all pretty quickly. Once the media caught wind of what was happening behind closed doors, it kind of just seemed to avalanche. And then from that point on, it seemed like the team really tried to rush Trey out the door. And, a lot of questions to be answered really by, both, Lynch as well as Shanahan. I think this presser after this game is going to be very interesting to see, how much, Kyle kind of dives into this, does he dance around questions? Does the Niner media PR person, come out and say, hey, no questions about Lance at the beginning? So it's funny because a lot of people last week were saying, oh my God, that was the most interesting preseason game I've ever watched. Right. Yeah. Mm-hmm. Right. Like a lot of people tuned in to see Trey Lance, and me being one of them, I watched the entire game just to see how Trey would do. Usually I check out by, the second quarter, early third quarter, because the second stringers, third stringers are in there. I'm like, it's just a preseason game. But I guarantee you everyone is going to be checking into this press conference after this preseason game. And how often have you said that? I'm going to check out a press conference after a preseason game. But a lot to be, like I said, answered. And we as fans and media that cover the 49ers, we want answers. We want to kind of see what's going on and to see if Lynch and Kyle can provide some feedback on what's going on, inside closed doors.
And like I said, they both dodged the local media that day where the announcement was made, or the report came out that, Sam Darnold was announced as the QB2. And I mean, from everyone's standpoint, I think it just looked weak. It looked like they were running from the smoke. So I really don't know what to expect for this, presser. I feel like there just won't be enough time to ask all the questions that everyone has. And, quite frankly, I don't think we're really ever going to get some of the answers to the questions that we've had for, I think, the last couple of years. And, I think you mentioned the fact that this avalanche didn't happen very quickly, and it did. It escalated very quickly, but I feel like a lot of this has been bubbling under the surface for quite some time. And like the writing has been on the wall, as we've been saying. I mean, it never felt like the 49ers were very committed to Trey Lance, even when they named him the starter last year. They brought back Jimmy Garoppolo, and that felt like hedging their bets a little bit and more so a protection plan, not so much against injury. I mean, that's always something to consider, but against Trey Lance and him potentially failing as the starter. So just from the get-go, it just hasn't felt like the 49ers were invested in Trey Lance. Of course, they invested 3 first-round picks to get him, which is why all of this, how this all went down, never seemed to make a lot of sense to the fans. But I will say this, based on everything, all the drama from the last few years, I'm kind of glad that this is over, because at least we know that I can't imagine how hard and difficult this must have been for Trey Lance these last few years, this past offseason, all that he's gone through with the injuries. And again, with how it's all looked from public perception of how this has all gone down. I can't imagine, how it's felt for Lance still. I find some peace knowing that Lance is at least, going to a team that hopefully will do right by him and give him that opportunity. And of course, we'll talk more about that in a bit, but let's talk about the compensation. So it's a 4th round pick that Dallas sent to the 49ers in exchange for Lance. And I think compensation wise, this is a win-win for both teams. And, I'll explain why. The 49ers were never going to get back what they traded up to get Lance in the first place. It's like when you buy a new car, as soon as you drive it off the lot, it loses some value. And I mean, the 49ers didn't really exactly help his value throughout this whole process either. Like over time, yes, there were the injuries that Lance suffered. There were the lack of opportunities. In the background, like the media constantly bashing him or just speaking negatively about him. It never seemed like there was anything positive really said about Lance publicly. And of course, this offseason, propping up Sam Darnold, the national media kept talking over and over about Sam Darnold. Oh, if Brock wasn't ready, Sam Darnold's going to be the starter, all these things. None of that helped Trey Lance's value. So his value just fell over time. The 49ers tried to hype up Lance to the media this offseason, I think because they realized, what had happened and they need to recoup some of that if they could. But the actions just weren't matching the words at times. So from the standpoint of you already knew you weren't going to get much for Trey, I would say a 4th round pick was more than I expected he would get right now. So I'm actually pleasantly surprised.
I agree with you. To be honest, I was thinking more 6th round, 7th round. That's how these things go. And like you said, his trade value was super low. I mean, he was demoted, to 3rd string quarterback behind Sam Darnold. I mean, that's how bad it got. That's how low his value got. There was even some, rumors out there within, the media circles that, hey, can he even get, released, at some point. So for the fact that the Niners got something and it's in the 4th round, I'm happy with that. I'm okay with that. Obviously, it's tough to swallow when they gave up so much to move up in the draft and to get him. But we're in the now, right? We're in the now, and considering what things have looked like in the last week, I'm happy that we got something back for him, and it wasn't a sixth or seventh rounder, or the fact that we didn't even cut him, and the fact that we're getting something. I'm like I said, I'm happy as a fan, and I haven't checked to see kind of fan reaction. I know I saw a lot of surprised reaction out there, but regarding the value that they got for him, I haven't really seen any feedback or any comments on Twitter about that. So I guess kind of wait to see, and then also one thing, Steph, I don't know if you know about this yet or if this has been announced, but are we paying any money like for this year, or is it like a complete release of his contract at this point? Do we know if we're tied to any financial obligations with his salary yet? Has that been disclosed?
I haven't seen anyone say that the 49ers were going to pay any more of his contract in order to get the trade done. I haven't seen that. Now, the 49ers had already, I believe, paid most of his 2023 salary just because a lot of it came from, I think, like training camp bonuses. So most of that money from this year has already been paid by the 49ers. So they're not paying extra for the Cowboys to take him or anything like that. So that's also, could be seen as a positive.
Right.
And, in a bit, I do want to talk about the implications of the contract and how that could maybe affect this Nick Bosa extension that, we keep talking about. But yeah, going back to, the fourth round pick, I do feel like it is a positive compared to what people were saying. And I do truly think everything was kind of on the table for the 49ers. Like if they didn't get a offer that they felt was good, I do think they would have kept him on the roster. And that honestly would have been a disservice to Trey Lance. Like, yeah, it might have benefited the 49ers somewhere down the road if, Brock and or Sam Darnold got hurt, but you're not doing the kid any favors. And if they truly wanted to do right by him, I think this was the right move. And that's why I say it's a win-win, because the 49ers, can finally start to move on. They knew they weren't going to have a spot for him on this roster. They knew they weren't going to be able to give him that opportunity anymore. For the Cowboys, I mean, I think it's a great trade for the Cowboys, honestly. Like, getting a former first round, third overall pick, and all you give up is a fourth round pick. That's right. Pretty great. And you already have a starter in Dak Prescott. So it's a very low risk move on, the Cowboys part. So I like it from their standpoint too. And of course for Trey Lance, like this is an opportunity for a clean slate. And it's an opportunity for opportunities and reps, hopefully. I mean, let's get into that actually, because Cowboys, their quarterback room is actually pretty crowded. Like it's just as crowded as the 49ers. So I'm kind of wondering, like, how does this work? Like, is this a good situation for the Cowboys? I mean, for Trey Lance, I think on the surface, it does look good for Lance just to get out of San Francisco and get a fresh start. But I kind of wonder where he falls on the Cowboys depth chart. What is their plan?
Right.
They have Dak Prescott, as I mentioned. He's a starter. Cooper Rush, who played and started games last season when Prescott was hurt. And Cooper Rush actually did pretty good in those games. They also have Will Grier, who has been in the league for a few years. He may be the odd man out. The roster cuts are coming down Tuesday, so maybe they cut him in favor of, Trey Lance, but that still puts Trey Lance at QB3 with the Cowboys. So I'm kind of wondering how that does benefit him, if at all. So I don't know what the Cowboys plan for Lance is, but I do hope it is a good one.
Yeah. Well, I mean, like you said, it's a fresh start for him. And I think that's what he needs. That's going to give him a boost. And he's still a young kid. That's one thing we got to remember. He's very young. So even if he sits a year behind Dak, who knows? Maybe in 2 or 3 years, he the Cowboys decide to move on from Dak Prescott if they don't get what they paid for from him, and they make the transition to a younger kid who most likely will have a fresh and smaller contract. But I agree with you. I think the Dallas Cowboys will keep him as their number 3. They'll get rid of their current number 3 right now, bring in Lance, have him sit on the sideline with the clipboard and a baseball cap, and have to kind of start from the bottom and work his way up, earn it, which is really, the life of a NFL quarterback, for not your typical 3rd round pick, not the journey of a 3rd round pick, but still it's the life of an NFL quarterback. Looking back, I think back to when Steve Young was behind Joe Montana, and he had to kind of patiently wait for his shot and his opportunity. There have been several quarterbacks throughout these decades that have kind of just waited and played that role of backup. And when their opportunity was presented itself, they took advantage of that, right? So Lance is just going to have to make sure that when that opportunity comes up, he's going to have to make sure that he's ready to go and take advantage of whatever opportunity he gets. Dak, we've seen Dak go down in the past, a few injuries. And it's the NFL, a starting quarterback can, we know that more than anyone, right? We went through like 4 quarterbacks all of last year. And so you never know when Dak could go down at any moment. And so they're preparing themselves for that scenario, and to have, like you said, a 3rd round pick, it's not a bad deal for them.
Yeah, I think so. Like I said, it's pretty low risk on their end. The concern that I have from Trey Lance's standpoint is that being the QB3, and this is the same thing people were saying about Trey Lance being the QB3 in San Francisco, is that those opportunities for reps are almost non-existent. It's the backup quarterback who gets the scout team reps.
Yeah.
And I mean, the QB3 is left with pretty much nothing. They are just sitting. And what has Trey Lance been doing his entire time in San Francisco? He's just been sitting. And it's so clear that he needs the reps in order to actually develop. So I think that's going to be the challenge. Like, how does he develop? I really do hope that there's some way for him to get some experience, in Dallas. I know people have been pointing out Dak Prescott. The Cowboys do have a deal. I mean, they do have an out in that deal in 2024. Now, whether or not that's like this move is just looking ahead to see if, I don't know, Lance can be that guy for them in the future. I don't know. But again, in order for Lance to be that guy, he's going to need the reps before that. So I don't know how they make it work. I don't know what the plan is. But again, I hope it's a good one. But I do want to ask you this, Fabio. So the Cowboys, division rival, and not just any division rival, it's the freaking Cowboys. So from that standpoint, like, is this kind of weird to you that he's going to the Cowboys of all teams?
Well, conference rivals, right? Not division.
Oh yeah. Sorry about that.
But still, it's a team we've matched up against twice in back-to-back playoffs. So definitely a threat there, right? But you know what? It is what it is. We've seen, players from our team go to rival teams in the past, whether it be Arizona or the Rams or Seattle, and vice versa. We've had players that have come to our team from rival opponents, right? So I don't think it'll hurt the Niners because he's not an immediate impact player, right? Mm-hmm. If he were to be an immediate impact player where he's starting, whether it be on defense or offense, we'd be concerned. But he's not one of those players that's going to bring immediate impact to the Cowboys right away. I know, Steven, brings up Charles Haley, for example. Charles Haley was a beast, Hall of Fame player, 5-time Super Bowl champion. When he crossed over and was, traded from the 49ers to the Cowboys, he was an immediate impact player. Like he wreaked havoc in that NFC Championship game versus, the 49ers. So I'm not too worried about that, to be honest with you, Steph. Maybe down the road, and when I say down the road, I'm talking maybe 3-4 years from now. But I'm not really worried about the impact, or that they made that the Cowboys now have an advantage on us. Not worried about that.
No, yeah, I don't think there's any like advantage in that sense. But RJ says, if Trey leads the Cowboys to a Super Bowl win before Shanny and the Niners, I'm going to be so mad. Yeah, I mean, I guess it is in the realm of possibility. We can't count it out. But yeah, I think as of right now, there is a lot in the way before something like that could potentially happen. But, week 4, 49ers playing the Cowboys at Levi's Stadium. That should be an interesting one. At least, Trey Lance will be there on the sidelines. So that'll be an interesting one. And get this, tomorrow, the Cowboys play the Raiders in their final preseason game. Jimmy Garoppolo, Trey Lance. Isn't that weird? Like, what is this? The script writers are doing weird things. But
we have 2 quarterbacks that are out there now. If Jimmy G won a Super Bowl before Shanahan, or if now Trey Lance wins a Super Bowl before Shanahan. So it's just something for us to follow as fans. And I don't see that happening. I think this league is just way too competitive for one player to be the difference maker on a team. Both of those players aren't at the caliber of Patrick Mahomes. So I'm not too worried about again, having these players play on different teams and it impacting, them to propel them to a Super Bowl championship. I don't see it happening. But like you said, Steph, you just never know, right? You never know in this league what can happen. I mean, you could have Patrick Mahomes get hurt week 1, Chiefs go down, Raiders, it propels the Raiders maybe to a playoff, to winning the AFC West. You just never know, what can happen in the NFL from week to week.
And that's why we love it so much. The EFS1 says, if this 4th pick produces a superstar, though, look, we're already talking about what can come of this 4th round pick, which is crazy because whoever gets picked with this 4th round pick, I mean, that's already a lot of pressure, I feel like, for that player. So I already kind of feel bad. Remember Javon Kinlaw and how much pressure was on him, to perform after the DeForest Buckner trade. I mean, this is kind of similar to that. I don't know if that player will ever be able to live it down, but we'll see. Speaking of Patrick Mahomes, who his quarterback coach is, Jeff Christensen, who Trey Lance was working with this past off season, and where they were working from. They were working at TCU together, practicing. So now he's going to be closer to Jeff Christensen, and maybe that could, help him in the meantime. And certainly in the off season, that will benefit him as well. Just a little nugget, a connection to Dallas. But going back to the implications that this may have on the 49ers cap situation now, as we were wondering and talking about, what the 49ers were going to be responsible for paying, if at all, for Trey Lance's contract, people here in the comments said that Cowboys are paying for his full salary, the full amount.
I like that.
This season, it was $940,000. So that is what the 49ers will save this season, and $5.3 million next season. Thank you, Keith. And they would get to decide whether or not to take that 5th-year option. I guess that's another thing too, lost in all of this. So yeah, I mean, more savings, especially for next year. And I kind of wonder if this has implications to Nick Bosa's contract. Nick Bosa still holding out. There's now talk of him potentially not suiting up week 1. Like he he is willing to go to the regular season with this holdout.
Yeah.
I mean, as he should be, honestly. And like, we know that the Bosa brothers do fight for every penny. They have leverage in these conversations. And Ian Rappaport was on KNBR earlier today talking about how there's not much conversation from both sides. So that makes me a little nervous. Now, does this 5.3 million going into next season potentially help those conversations? I gotta imagine that it might a little bit, right? Like it definitely can't hurt.
Yeah, I agree. I would assume that that 5.3 is money in the pocket in the bank now that they didn't have 24 hours ago, right? So obviously, now it's some money that they could, maybe possibly slide into that new deal with Bosa. It's very unfortunate that we've come to this point in the off season, and we're hearing that both parties are kind of disconnected and not agreeing on anything at the moment. Little bit worried, I'm not going to lie, because we all know that being at camp and being in these preseason games is good for players. It gets them ready. We've seen players in the past that go the entire, camp and the entire preseason without, holding out and without being on the field with the team, and it hurts them. It hurts their performance. So I'm a little bit worried. I'm not going to say I'm disappointed, because obviously that's the business side of football that us as fans, hard for us to understand that, right? I get both sides. I get why Bosa is looking to max out and get what he deserves, right? But a little bit worried, because we're at a point right now where, week one is just, gets closer and closer, and our man Bosa is not on the field yet with his teammates.
Yeah, and Nick Bosa has never played in a preseason game since he's been in the NFL, but training camp, any portion of training camp would have certainly helped that ramp up for him, as it does for every player.
Yep.
And even just these next couple weeks before, week one would help, right? And just practicing with the team and being on the field with these guys. So, like you said, it could hurt players that have, it has hurt players that have done this in the past. And not only that, but it does increase the risk of players hurting themselves, getting an injury once they do get back on the field.
True.
So that is what you do worry about. I still think this deal gets done, but it's a matter of when. And I kind of wonder if this Trey Lance trade, like if there was extra urgency to get this done, to get the money off the books.
Right.
So I don't know, but hopefully with this news, maybe it can lead to an extension sooner, and hopefully we get that news, in the coming days. But yeah, that is one, positive to this, Trey Lance trade. Fabio, do you?
I have a question. Has Lynch? I know a lot of the conversation, a lot of the questions that Lynch and Shanahan have been taking have been more, aimed towards the quarterback situation. What has Lynch kind of said in regards to the contract and where that's at the moment? Has he been taking any questions from the media in response to the current holdout?
Yeah, actually, I mean, he was on when he spoke to KNBR yesterday. He was asked about that, and he said he didn't like the situation, which, is probably already like maybe a cause for concern there. I'm trying to find the quote because I did have I did have it pulled up. But yeah, he said he didn't like the situation. He made it seem like both sides are still talking. This is the quote. Since our tenure here, we haven't had a holdout anywhere close to this magnitude. We're working really hard to try to change that. We're in communication with his reps. He's a special player. He's going to get a special contract. I can tell you that. And he kind of left it at that, pretty vague. But again, as Ian Rappaport said, it sounded like there weren't a lot of discussions happening. And so I don't know. I'm starting to wonder if maybe Nick Bosa's agent is starting to get impatient and starting to leak some things, because we have slowly started to hear some things in the media, even though, Lynch has been keeping it pretty close to the vest. But now that urgency is picking up, I do feel like we've started to see some, some more reports coming out. And for good reason. I mean, again, we're getting close to week 1 here, so it is becoming a big deal. So hopefully that gets done soon. But going back to the Lance trade, I want to get your opinion. Is this draft pick and this trade up for Trey Lance the worst in NFL history?
Man, I've talked to people that have said yes. Hard to say because one that really comes to mind is Ricky Williams, right? Like the Saints gave up their entire draft to move up to get Ricky Williams, right? You remember that one. There's been a few that have been highly up there that have gotten bad reviews, and for me, I don't think it's quite there yet. Here's the thing: if he goes on to be successful, leading the Cowboys or any other team to NFC Championship, maybe even a Super Bowl, it looks even worse, right? Because we let him go. Now, if he ends up being a complete bust, it's up there. It's probably, I would say, not top 5, but maybe top 10 in the NFL. It's just hard to gauge, to be honest. I would have to kind of go back and kind of see.
Right, yeah.
It's kind of hard to kind of gauge that. Again, for me, the big one that I always think about is the Ricky Williams one, where the Saints gave up the entire draft, all their draft picks for one running back, and Ricky Williams ended up phasing out, right, in the league. It's just very disappointing, right? Because there was so much promise, and we were excited. We were very excited as fans to be having a top pick quarterback coming into our team, and it just didn't pan out. So it just feels very. It's very hard to accept everything that's happening. Here's one for you though. What if other quarterbacks in that draft go on to do way better than Trey Lance? Now, the one player that I'm thinking about is Justin Fields, just because he got taken 11th, I believe, by the Bears. He was there. Niners probably didn't have to move up all that much to get a guy like Justin Fields, right? If Justin Fields has a breakout season this year and he has consecutive years, where he's like a star, and starts to, help the Bears, win games and change that franchise around, then I could see it being, one of the worst, move ups in NFL history, because, then you start to question, well, they didn't have to move up. They could have just drafted Justin Fields, So I think there's just a lot of, things behind us feeling as fans that it could potentially be, one of the worst move ups in NFL history. We just have, only time will tell. We'll see what happens with this one. I'm kind of living in the moment though, Steph, and I'm ready for Brock Purdy, man, to be honest with you. And it's so crazy how the NFL and things work out, right? We moved up to grab a quarterback at number 3. He's no longer on our team. And here's Mr. Irrelevant that's going to be our starter now. It's just like, it's the both ends of the stick there. So, I think if Brock Purdy does what he did last year, and we go back to the NFC Championship game, get our shot once again, I think all is forgiven and forgotten, right? Winning cures everything. We've heard that before, right? So if Brock Purdy could come in and take us back to the, to the NFC Championship game, maybe even to a Super Bowl, we're not even thinking about Trey Lance, and we're not even looking at that or even worried about, do you remember the 49ers? They moved up, to get Trey Lance. I like to be positive, and I also like to just kind of really be happy at the fact that we got Brock Purdy right now in the driver's seat and ready to kind of take this team, to the next level this year.
Shout out Gammon Brown. He says, shout out to my mom. My SC is on TV. Nice. Thank you for the donation, Gammon. But yeah, I agree with you. I think we do just have to continue moving forward. The NFL is a crazy league and it doesn't stop for anyone. That's just the nature of the beast. And, Brock Purdy is here. And that ultimately is, I think, what gave him the flexibility to move on from Trey Lance to begin with. And if anything, it's what has kept Kyle and John comfy in their spots, right? Because it literally, like any other situation, we'd be looking at someone who botched this trade up for a 3rd overall pick. As a fireable offense. And we're not doing that, or at least most of us are not, because the 49ers are still a good team and they have Brock Purdy and they can still go to the NFC Championship game and they can still go to the Super Bowl potentially. So, all those things are on the table for this team. So as long as that is still true, these guys' jobs are safe.
Right.
And we are going to be happy with the team that is on our TVs. Right. So, I mean, it's tough. It's definitely tough. I feel for Lance for sure. I do wish him the best, even in Dallas. I do think it's funny he ended up in Dallas because it was like, you want to support Trey Lance wherever he goes. You're not going to like it if he goes to Dallas, right? So they put us in a difficult spot there. But in all actuality, the now is still good for the 49ers. And, hopefully they do get a chance to go far in the playoffs this year. So with that, I mean, we're going to end the Trey Lance portion of this pod. As I mentioned, me and my brother were originally going to do this live to talk about fantasy football and our fantasy football league because we were going to announce the order of our draft. We're
draft
still
lottery, the first of its kind on the show, by the way.
So we're still going to do that. So, we're stopping the Trey Lance talk here, but if you guys are so interested in our draft lottery, stay tuned in to watch that. My brother did want to do this on Facebook Live, and I was like, I hit him with the Magic Johnson, I won't be there, because what am I, like a 40-year-old, aunt or something?
Steph, you just had to throw it in there, huh?
I did because, you're living in archaic times. So I was like, I can do it live on my YouTube channel. And so here we are.
I love it. Why not, right? And like I said, it's a first of its kind and hopefully maybe even a tradition moving forward.
So for all of you guys that do end up joining, after the fact, and are entering this video confused, just know that we're now doing the draft order lottery of our fantasy draft. And I do see that we have some of our members of the draft in here. What's up, Christo? I'm assuming this is Christo here. He's the Ligers. So, all right, what I did here is a random wheel of names, and we're just going to go order. And I can remove the people who do get called. The list of names and the order that they appear here is based on how we finished in last year's season. So yes, I was second to last. I was 9th place last season. And even my brother had a better season than me. So that is the order. And basically what's going to happen, Fabio, do you want to send a text to the guys to let them know we're about to do it?
Yeah, I'll let them know.
And do you want, Keith says, I need to join your fantasy league. Okay. So yeah, not the actual Dr. Disrespect, but I'm guessing this is Ayuk.
There you go. Yeah,
me.
That's Angel. That's my boy.
Yeah,
Angel.
so
yeah,
I saw him in the comments earlier. So they've been tuned in. It seems like a lot of them have been here for a minute. So thank you guys for staying on. Make sure you guys like this video if you have not yet too.
I do want to say too, real quick, Steph. This is a league that's been going on since 2012. There's a lot of history here. We've kind of kept consistency and continuity with a lot of these team members here. And the funny thing is, a lot of them don't know, have never met each other, in person. But, anytime fantasy football comes around, football brings us together. It's always a fun group. So happy to kick off, season, I don't know, I guess this would be season 11, season 12, 2023 edition.
Yeah, let's go. Fabio, do you want to start with the number 1 pick first or go in backwards order?
Let's go backwards. I like the tension as we get ready for the final three,
yeah.
right?
So this is for pick 10 then, right?
All right, pick 10. Let's go.
All right, here we go. Who gets pick number 10?
Zico.
Oh,
the commissioner.
Hey. So Fabio gets pick
10,
and so I'm gonna remove his name now from the list. And Fabio, just keep track of who.
For sure. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. So this is for pick 9 in the draft. Pick 9. Oh, almost me.
TDs.
All right.
That's my boy, Jose.
Okay.
He goes number 9. Yeah.
All right, removed him from the list. So now we're going pick 8. Pick 8 in our draft. Adam's a-holes. Who's that?
That is a good friend of mine and my boss. Actually, he's in the league. This is his second year, and I gotta say I do love that name.
It is, it's definitely one of the top ones in this league. All right, so this is pick 7 now. Pick 7.
Yep, pick 7. Zika, there we go.
The lone Cowboy fan in our league, Zika virus.
I do gotta say, I like that name though. It's a pretty clever name. He loves the Cowboys, loves obviously Zeke, and he went with that name during the COVID virus. So hey, it worked out, right?
It went with the times for
sure. Yeah. A little bit outdated now, though. I do gotta say,
a little. He might need to update that now that Zeke's not even on the Cowboys. So maybe he should do a Trey Lance name. Maybe.
There you go. There you go.
All right, pick 6. Pick 6 in our draft. Here we go.
Christo.
All right, Christo, the Fighting Ligers, pick 6 in our draft.
Steph, I do want to say you're still alive. If you happen to get number 1, is there going to be?
I don't want one.
Is there going to be complaints of maybe you rigged this or what?
Oh, come on. Come on now. Okay, so pick 5. Pick 5 in our draft. And for the record, I don't want one at all. All right, so 5 is Bacon is King.
That's my boy Max. Bacon is King, number 5.
So now we're to 4. Pick 4.
Angel, last year's champion, Mr. Disrespect. With the
I like that team name.
I do.
Are you kidding me?
That was
That's
pretty
good.
Well, also he has a sub name, Mr. Disrespect. Also, I like both of those names, so he could kind of bounce back and forth. So hey, we're down to the final 3. We have Carlos, we have Ivan, and then we have Steph. Top 3 right now.
Right. I'm not a fan, but here we go. So this is for pick 3.
Pick 3. There we go. Carlos, pick 3.
All right. Here we go. We're going to determine who gets 2 and who gets 1.
Drum roll, please. Drum roll, please. Hey, this is really for Christian McCaffrey, right?
I don't want Christian McCaffrey.
Oh, there we go, Steph. You got.
So I was 2.
You got number 2.
That was 2, and Ace gets pick number 1.
Yvonne. Yep. There we go, man. That was awesome, Steph. Appreciate it. That was fun. That was awesome. Thanks for sharing, the last few minutes of your pod to kind of do the draft lottery. Much funner, much better than the outdated Facebook Live.
Yeah, we had to change that. That was definitely fun. And in the future, hopefully we can do a fantasy football episode surrounding this. And hopefully, we won't always have to talk about a trade in the heat of the moment. But thank you guys so much for tuning in. The 49ers play here shortly, so make sure you guys enjoy that game. Subscribe to the channel if you have not yet. Hit that thumbs up button. And have a good rest of your Friday, folks. Peace.
Woo!